Welcome to another great episode right here on IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Ronnie Wong, and today we're taking a look at PMP, the Project Management Professional. We're specifically going into some of the different formulas, and this time, though, we're taking a cumulative approach and talking about some of the different indexes. Who better to help us than Mr. Don Pizzette? Don, how's it going?
It is going great, Ronnie. Thanks for having me back, and we're going to basically jump right back into our formulas in action, and the ones we're going to take a look at today are some interesting ones that I admittedly don't use in production very often because I have software that does it for me, but they're ones that we need to be aware of and we need to understand why they're available. And what they are cumulative indexes. Now, in previous episodes, we covered cost variance and we covered schedule variance. And with both of those, we calculated indexes, the Schedule Performance Index, or SPI, and the CPI, or Cost Performance Index. With both of those indexes, or indices, what do you mean?
Indices,
whatever.
yeah.
With both those indexes, I'll run with that. With both of those indexes, they're really just a single point in time, right? We look at our we'll use SPI as an example. You look at your earned value and your planned value for that moment in time. Or cost, right? We look at our earned value and our actual cost for that moment in time, right? Here's the problem with that. You might look at things right now and they look fine, but they have a track record of being really bad. And what can happen is if you look at it right now and everything looks fine, well, next week things might be bad again. But you didn't see that coming because you didn't look historically. So where cumulative indexes come in is they try and help you get a better handle on how things have been running to date. Not just on this date, but to that date, everything that happened before. This is incredibly useful if you're a new project manager or an existing project manager assigned to a new project, right? So maybe there's a project that's failing and they bring you in and they say, all right, you're the new PM, take this project and make it better. And you sit down and you just run your CPI and your SPI and everything looks good. And you're like, ooh, this is gonna be easy. I'm just gonna kick back. This project, it's not in danger at all. But if you run your cumulative indexes, you'll start to see the history. You'll see the problem and you'll see what you're most likely to end up with. And this is not true forecasting. We're going to talk about true forecasting in another episode. So this isn't like EAC and all that good stuff. But this does give you a better idea on the health of the project compared to what it's been doing historically, right? So enough jabbering about it. Let me show you how this works. We'll start with cost, because cost is usually the one that we deal with. Schedule is less common. With cost, what we do is we take our cost performance index, right? The same formula we saw in previous episodes. CPI equals EV divided by AC, right? There's nothing new there. That's just the standard formula. Well, except these little C's that are stuck up here, right? So what do all those little C's mean? What they mean is the cumulative value, not just one actual cost, but the actual cost over a period of time. And not just one earned value, but the earned value over several periods of time. Okay, so we have to take the numbers that we've gathered and sum them up. If I have 5 different reports for my actual cost, I need to add up all 5 of them. And I need to take the corresponding 5 earned value reports and add them up and take the cumulative EV and divide it by the cumulative AC, and that will give me my cumulative cost performance index, which factors in not just the latest report, but the previous reports also. Now, the biggest challenge that we have with CPI is making sure our data set is accurate, okay? If I want to work with CPI, here's a great example, right? So they're giving me some information. They've been running reports already. I'm the new guy, I come in, I'm here to save this project. And so they give me a report that looks like this, okay? Looks like they do reporting every 2 weeks. So we've got a report on January 15th, February 1st, February 15th, March 1st. It's a little more than 2 weeks, right? So it's the 1st and the 15th of the month. I'm getting a status report. And on each status report, they calculate the earned value and the actual cost, all right? Now, these reports, if I'm gonna use this formula, I've gotta have an earned value for every actual cost. I have the same number. So I'm fortunate here. I've got 4 actual costs. I've got 4 EVs that for the same time period, this is accurate data. If one group, like the accounting department, is doing actual cost, and then the people in the field are doing the earned value, you might have reports from different dates, or you might have more of one report than another, and that becomes a challenge. So you got to do a little data sanitation and make sure things line up. The other thing is there's 2 ways to track this, all right? Notice my earned value numbers here, 20,500, then 38,000, then 60,000, then 84,000. See how it's getting bigger each time? That's because more and more work is getting done. These are actually already cumulative, right? This 84,000 here is actually everything before it plus what happened between February 16th and February 28th, or 29th if it's a leap year, right? So gotta factor that one in. So it's kind of already cumulative, and that's okay as long as my actual cost is that way also, right? And it is, see, 22,000, 38,000, 65,000. But let's say that the accounting department was saying you had 22,000 on January 15th, but then what would it be, 16,000 is what you had up to February 1st, right? 16,000 plus 22,000 gets us to 38,000, right? So that's the new expenses, and then so on like that. So if one has been tracked per reporting period and the other is cumulative, that can screw up your numbers. So they either need to both be cumulative or they need to both be per reporting period. And it's up to your company to decide which one you're going to do. As far as calculating out your CPI, all that matters is that they match. They just have to match. They have to be the same, either per reporting period or cumulative already. Once you've determined that, you can calculate out your cumulative CPI. Now, they've calculated out the CPI for each one. I don't necessarily care about that. I'm going to ignore that because the cumulative basically makes it where I sum up all my earned values and I sum up all my actual costs and I plug that into the formula, right? So let's run through that process, right? If I take my earned value and I sum that up, well, I'm going to need a little calculator help on this one, so let me get my trusty calculator out. And so we'll take 20,500, and I'm going to add to that 38,000, and I'm going to add to that 60,000, and I'm going to add to that 84,000, okay? And I get $202,500. Now, I haven't spent $202,500, right? The accounting department is actually telling me as of March 1st, I've only spent $80,000. But I'm okay with that because I know this is a cumulative value because that's the way the report's been given to me. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's how it is. All right, so I'm going to take $202,500 and just plug that in here. All right, and I'm okay with that being cumulative because my actual costs are cumulative also. And you can see where I could convert these if I needed to. I go and subtract out and convert them to per period if I need it. But for the numbers that I've got here, let me just go through and add these up. So 22,000 plus 38,000 plus 65,000 plus 80,000 gets me $205,000. So it looks like whatever I get is not going to be that off, right? This is going to be a fairly good project. So I get $205,000. Now, all I have to do is take these two numbers and run them through my formula, the same formula that we've been using. So I take my earned value, $202,500, and I divide that by my actual cost, $205,000. And I get 0.987, which I would round up to 0.99, 0.99. Okay. Now, if I just came into this project today and I just pulled the latest report from March 1st, right? The latest report shows me at 1.05. I'm 5% over, right? So I'm spending too much, right? I've spent 84,000 and I've earned 84,000 and I've spent 80,000. I'm actually under budget in this case, right? So I haven't spent enough. But I can see that historically I'm 1% over budget. So while I look like I'm ahead, I actually have a little bit of a deficit. Now, to be honest with you guys, 5%, 1% here is not that big of a deal. This is a good, healthy project, right? So I'm not too worried about it. But there have been hiccups. There have been times where we were dead on with our CPI, but we got off to a rocky start, 7% off. And then we hit that rocky part again, 8% off. But now we have an overage, and that can make it where we lose sight of the fact that we had a couple of bad reporting periods back there. The cumulative CPI helps us see that. So now I get a more realistic view of that project. Now, on the exam, you might be tempted to just add up all your CPIs and take the average of them, right? Which in theory would get you the same number, but it actually doesn't. It gets you close, and it's because these numbers are rounded. So you'd actually have to have the true, full, laid out decimal points to be able to get the right number going that way. So on the exam, if they give you the CPI like that, don't just total those up. Generate your own, right? Unless you know that they're accurate all the way to the decimal point. Or if you look at the multiple choice answers and the answers are all kind of in the same, or like far enough apart that you know which one it is without rounding, then you can go that route. But I usually go ahead and just total them up myself. All right. They might even give you a chart like this where the CPI field is blank. But again, you don't need the CPIs for each individual period. You don't care about that, right? So you can just leave that out and just jump right down here. Sum these guys up and then calculate your CPI, your cumulative CPI. That's all you care about. You don't necessarily care about the individual CPIs for each one. It's nice to see that. And if you have project management software, it'll calculate it for you. You'll have that, right? But on the exam, answer the question they ask, not some question that you create in your head. They're not asking me for the CPI of each individual one. They're asking me to get a good picture of the financial health of the project, right? I don't need to know each individual period CPI when I can just pull up the cumulative and get a good view of the financial health of the project, right? So let's run through this one real quick. These are slightly bigger numbers. If I take $120,000 and we'll add 200,000 and then 350,000 and then 400,000. All right, so that's 1.07 million. So let's hope that fits in here. It does. All right, so there's our cumulative earned value. And now I'll take my cumulative actual cost. I'm going to take 100,000 and we'll add on 190,000. We'll add on 300,000 and we'll add on 375,000. So we're at $965,000. And now we can just take those values and feed them into our formula, right? So it's going to be $1,070,000. Oh, come on. What have I done? There we go. Divided by $965,000. And I get a 1.108, so I'd round that up to 1.11. So this is a 1.11, all right? And so looking at this, I've earned more value than I've paid out historically, right? There have been times where it wasn't like that, but actually, have there been? Actually, it looks like we're pretty consistent here that we've always earned more than we've paid out. And so right now I'm sitting at 11% under budget. Is that a great thing? Should I go and get an award? No, what it probably means is my accounting department is taking too long to pay my contractors, right? I'm continually behind on my actual cost versus my earned value. So I need to go and revisit my accounting policies and see if we can't figure that out. Or maybe something else is happening. Maybe I'm getting false reports from the field, or work's not getting done that's supposed to get done. Maybe I had a huge underage at one point, and now I'm just kind of feeling the benefits of that going throughout. I need to go and identify that, right? But I can see that. I've got 1.11. That's my answer. And now I know the cumulative CPI. Now, the cumulative SPI, it's really the same thing, right? Cumulative SPI, we just take the same formula that we used for SPI and we just make it cumulative. So instead of earned value divided by planned value, it's the cumulative earned value divided by the cumulative planned value. And it's not really any different than what we saw over with CPI. We'll usually get a layout that looks something like this, right? That gives us our earned value and our planned value, or we might have to calculate those out. And then our SPI if that's been calculated out. But then we just sum up these numbers and we run them through that formula, earned value divided by planned value, if we want to get that picture of health. Now, remember on the exam, they can make a question really hard if they don't necessarily give you the earned value and they give it to you as the, the percentage of work complete and the planned value. Then you got to go through and start calculating that out, and that becomes a challenge. So you have like more than one formula you have to apply to answer the question. But if it's straightforward like this one, it's just a matter of summing these guys up, right? Just like we did a moment ago. So if I take $2,400, whoops, $2,400, oh geez. Now my calculator skills are in question. We'll add in $4,000, we'll add in another $4,000, and then we'll add in $9,000. Now that's an interesting one right there. So I get $19,400, and what I noticed as I was typing all that in is that we had a work stoppage. If you look, I've got 2 reporting periods where my earned value didn't change. That means one of two things. Either one, this isn't a cumulative number. Maybe each one of these is a reporting period. This one was 2,400, this was 4,000, this was 4,000, this was 9,000, each one individual periods versus something that's continually growing. I can't really tell here, but on my planned value, we can tell. Or if our planned values are close enough, then it doesn't really matter. These could be per period because it's per period here also. All right. So I got 19,400 on my planned value. I can calculate the same thing. Now notice on my most recent period, it shows that I'm spot on. This project's running great, right? But I definitely had a problem back here. There was a work stoppage. No work got done. I earned no value between February 1st and February 15th. So that's an issue. Well, unless this is a per period. All right, so then I'm going to add up this other one. So I'll take 2,000. We'll add in 4,000. We'll add in 6,500. And then we'll add in 9,000. we get $21,500. $21,500. Okay? And we take those numbers and we just feed them into our formula, right? Earned value divided by planned value. So my earned value was 19,400, and I divide that by 21,500, and I get an SPI of a cumulative SPI of 0.902, which I would round to 0.90. Or we'll just say 0 to keep the formatting right. There we go. All right, so now when I look at this, what do I know about the project? Well, in my most recent reporting period, things are great. I got a 1.0, that's perfect. My schedule is exactly where it needs to be. I'm earning value, I'm paying, getting my plan value, it's all lined up, everything's coming together great, all right? But when I'm concerned about the health of the project, I need to know that in the past things were not so healthy. And looking back here, looking at my SPI, see how my SPI, I had an earned value of 4,000, plan value of 4,000, things are right in line. But afterwards, I had an earned value of 4,000, my plan value was 6,500, I had a 0.62, I was 38% off my schedule. That's bad, right? So we had a real big problem there. Maybe there was a labor dispute or something of that nature, and now we had to correct it. Well, notice how I had a $6,500 plan value here and a $9,000 plan value here. So in that period, I had expected to do $2,500 worth of work. But looking over here, we did $5,000 worth of work. So maybe there was a labor dispute, we resolved the dispute and then brought in double the labor to account for that. So we're evened up now, but I know there was a problem. I know there was a problem because I can see it in my cumulative SPI, and that's where it really comes in. If you're a newly assigned project manager to this project, and it's already been running on for weeks, months, years, whatever, the cumulative values are a great way to see that history, to get an idea of, hey, there was a rocky road in the past, and now we're past it.
Now, Don, these particular indexes, they really do help us out with, like you're talking about, the very fact that it gives us a historical perspective and to see how we've actually done in the past compared to where we are also right then as we start adding those things up. For the exam, though, you mentioned several things, right? That they could take out a bunch of information and allow you to actually have to calculate them back in and make sure that we get that all. But the totals themselves, this is where I'm getting confused, right? Mm-hmm. You're saying that they either, in each column there, the earned value and the planned value, if they're cumulative, they should both be cumulative. You shouldn't end up seeing, I'm not going to say you can't, but where one's going to be like iterative, in other words, each reporting period, and the other one's cumulative, right?
If that happens on the exam, then the answer you'll have to choose is the one that says not enough information provided, right? So let me clarify on that statement real quick to show what you'd get, because all of mine appear to be cumulative. I worked up these examples a while back, and apparently I didn't get very adventurous. So let's say that we jump in, and it's per reporting period, okay? Well, here on the left side, I can start to say like what my plan values are. And so my plan value, I might say 120,000 for the first one, and then I come through and I say something like 80,000, and then actually I should probably work this backwards. Easier. Let's see, this was 400,000, so this would be another 50,000. Let's see, does that work out right? 200? No, shoot, I screwed it up. Let me, this is what I get for trying to change things on the fly. All right, so this one should have a 50,000 gain. This one should have a 150,000. That's what I lost. And then this one should be 80,000. Okay. When I look at these numbers, all right, let's say on the exam I get a chart and it looks like this. On the left side, see how the numbers steadily grow? 125,000, then 210,000, then 360,000, then 440,000. On the plan value side, though, they don't. Sometimes they grow, sometimes they shrink. 120,000, then down to 80, then up to 150, then down to 50,000. It's going up and down. We get these variations, okay? You expect to see variations like that when you've got it per reporting period. The accounting department expects to pay out 120 grand by January 15th. They expect to pay out another $80,000 by February 1st. They expect to pay another $150,000 by February 15th. And then another $50,000 by March 1st. That's their plan per reporting period, okay? And it's okay that it's like that, as long as my earned value is like that also. But if you look at the earned value, see how it's steadily growing and growing and growing, getting bigger and bigger, and look how off that is, 440,000 versus 50,000. Those numbers are not anywhere close. And so if I were to calculate SPI on that, my numbers would be way skewed. These are not compatible numbers. And so I need to correct that. I need to get my earned value as per reporting period also. But that's really hard to do. I can't just go and subtract these out. I can't say, well, 440,000 minus 360,000, that's what goes here. All right. And the reason is, with earned value, you're taking your planned value and you're multiplying it by a percentage of work. And I don't necessarily know what that percentage of work was. There's two variables that are in the mix that kind of throw things off. Well, I might have my planned value over here, and I can use that, but I still have this other variable, and I have to do a lot of work to convert it. And so it can be done in some scenarios, but in the exam, the answer would normally be not enough information provided, right? That these are not compatible. But if they were listed in a way that was proper, if it was per reporting period, right? Then we can come in and say, like, punching in these numbers where we have a project that is, let's just do slight overages here. There, like this. See how, again, my numbers, they might be bigger, then smaller, then bigger, then smaller. What I've got here is a situation where I'm doing per reporting period. My earned value just for this reporting period, from February 1st to February 15th, this reporting period was $145,000. And I can compare that to my planned value just for that reporting period. You got to do apples to apples, right? And oranges to oranges. So now we can go through and total these up, and we'll get a realistic good number that is cumulative on these. And so if I run through the old calculator here and start totaling these up, so I'll take 125,000 plus 85,000 plus 145,000 plus 55,000. I end up with 410,000. All right. And then if I take my planned values and run through the same process, so 120,000 plus 80,000 plus 150,000 plus 50,000. I get 400,000. All right. So now the numbers are actually far more indicative of what my total project cost should be, right? When I did it back here, my project is not a $19,400 project, right? My project is a $9,000 project. But because these were cumulative, when I added it up, I get a nice big number. Now, at the end of the day, because we're doing division, it doesn't matter. It all factors out, right? But if I got the numbers the way they've given them to me here per reporting period, it is accurate. This is a $400,000 project. And I've got an overage of 10,000 I can see already, which means I'm apparently ahead of schedule somehow, but over budget. So if I feed that into our formula to solve it, right, I can take my $410,000 and divide that by the $400,000 plan value, and I get 1.025, which I would round up to 1.03, and there's my cumulative SPI. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, 3%, right? And that means I've also spent a little more money. I've earned that value from what my plan value was.
Well, Don, we do appreciate you showing us those two formulas to help us, especially with those cumulative cost performance indexes, as well as the scheduled performance indexes too, that will help us to determine what Don just showed us and get us ready for the exam. Don, any last words as people are actually taking a look at this on the exam? Anything else that we need to think about here?
Sure, double check your math, because remember, you'll be doing a lot of this by hand on paper, and it's easy to make mistakes. Cumulative stuff is usually pretty straightforward. You probably only see 1 or 2 questions on it tops. There's, 200 questions on the exam, so it's just kind of a small portion. But it is something that turns up. In real life land, you'll use project management software to do this, right? Microsoft Project calculates these things without batting an eye. So it's not necessarily something you're going to work with every day, and that makes it even harder for the exam, because now you've got to make sure you know it. You might have 20 years of project management experience and just not do these by hand. So just practice with it, get used to it. Remember, the formula is really the same as what we had for our regular CPI and SPI. We're just totaling up the values for each reporting period.
All right, that's a great place for us to go ahead and end this episode. Signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Ronnie Wong.
And I'm Don Pizzette.
And we'll see you next time.